guys. I've got a special guest for y'all today. We're going to cover some very interesting topics. All right, so let's go ahead and bring them on. We've got Tommy Clark, author of the Portland Riots. How's it going, Tommy?
Hey, how's it going, Randall? Hello, everybody.
Hey, man. Yeah, so we got a mutual friend that linked us up a while ago, and it's about damn time we do this. So, as I said, guys, the Portland Riots. There is a link in the description. I highly recommend you go check it out. This is a great story. So, Tommy, if you want to give us just a little bit of backstory, how you got into all this, and you know what led you to write this story.
Hey, everybody. So I've been a police officer now for close to 15, going on 16 years. Also a veteran in the military. I had just come home from a deployment and it kind of went into the 2020 Portland riots, which is probably one of the worst times in my career as a police officer. It was very demanding as far as the long hours and the physicality of it, you know, wearing hats and bats every night. I think working probably in the average about 14 hours a day. That was every day for, you know, over 100 days in a row.
All right. So, yeah, you know, I want to get pretty deep into this, but, you know, I got to ask, we got a pretty big situation that happening right now with President Trump. So you got any thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's a terrible thing to happen, man. It's especially for someone that's, you know, running to be possibly the next president. And I'm glad he's okay though. But prayers go to all the victims that was involved in that incident. That's a terrible thing to happen.
Yeah, from a security standpoint, have you seen anything that brought up some questions for you?
You know, to be honest, I've been away for work in the last 3 days, so I haven't really seen the details on what actually, the smaller details on what happened as far as security. I've seen some blurbs about, you know, possibly not having enough security for the most part, and security was requested and denied. Those are the things that I've heard so far. But as far as actually fully watching the entire event, and to be honest, I haven't even seen the video yet because I've been away for work.
Gotcha. All right. So, and guys, if you want to hear my thoughts, I'm going to do a separate video on this. So, going into that, like from a security standpoint, you know, going through your book, man, what I like about it is you really get a sense of, like, you really get into your mind. It's written in a good way to where you can feel like your frustration and you know the bullshit you guys are dealing with. So, kind of talk us through like leading up to that, which you do in the book. Like, you know, you kind of have a backstory and conditions set up for that. So I think a lot of people know kind of the stories about how a lot of these went, but, you know, just kind of go through like the setup and the conditions, you know, leading up to this freaking battleground you were in.
Well, you kind of see it was about to happen, you know, when you know, the calm before the storm. As you patrol the streets, you can kind of see you know, pockets of you know, disorderly conduct that we normally didn't see, and the type of aggression, you know, the finger gun pointing at police officers that, you know, I normally don't see that, but you know that was more frequent. This is basically right after, you know, the incident with George Floyd. And then, you know, you start seeing like new faces that would show up in town, people we've never seen before. So yeah, there was like a ramp up to to the event prior to that first night when they they stormed the jail, at least the building that hosts the jail.
And this was in 2020?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So, did you guys have any issues in 2016 after the election?
Yeah, we definitely had some issues, but not as nearly as as big as the 2020 riots. Portland is kind of the epicenter of any I'd say protest. You have Antifa that's kind of based out of Portland, and they have a pretty lively crew that tends to participate in a lot of demonstrations in downtown Portland.
Yeah, so is it kind of like you have these groups of people that you're aware of, and they're kind of in the back of your mind if you're out on patrol or something, and then if an event happens, you just know it's going to be amplified, or are they always causing problems?
They're always causing problems, but it's always more amplified after some type of a significant event, and that's just the type of the people that they are. I mean, they take advantage of any event that they can use against police officers, and most definitely they, as you guys you saw what happened in 2020. That was kind of a pretty significant event that they capitalized for a very long time, and I think that was probably one of the longest running riots that we've had in the history of the United States. It lasted for about a year.
Yeah, and so as a veteran, you're coming home and you're telling the story where you kind of the George Floyd thing happened, and you can kind of see it coming. So did you pick that up from the news and just your experience already dealing with all this, and you just or was the news doing something different, the media?
Well, I think the media was probably the biggest culprit of kind of initiating that whole entire event, because immediately they started demonizing police officers, and I knew that. I mean, that's something that wasn't new. We've seen that time and times again with the demonizing of police officers, and you couple that with just the atmosphere, the change of atmosphere as we're patrolling the streets, and the type of looks that we're getting from people, and of course people are more brazen as far as what they're doing on the streets. So yeah, it was definitely not a surprise. In fact, I pretty much guessed what was going to happen. I didn't guess exactly when it was going to happen, but I knew it was around the corner.
Okay, and so I haven't been to Portland. I've been to Oregon, but for people who haven't been up there, we all think of it as like a hipster, I don't know, not these days kind of communist area. So, but it doesn't come off as like a violent, super dangerous place. So, is that accurate? Or, I mean, at least before this 2020 era, was it always just kind of like a San Francisco type place, or where certain people are never safe there? Or, as far as you guys, did you always have problems? Or, I mean, it's not like Detroit or something, right?
No, definitely not like Detroit, but Portland used to be a lot safer. I mean, I remember going to Portland when I was in high school, and you didn't have the crime that you see now. The crime, I mean, it's probably started spiraling out of control even before the George Floyd incident. But that incident, of course, amplified everything, just like it did everywhere else in other cities in the United States. But no, Portland has had some problem with gangs. And being a patrol officer, I've worked the streets for a long time, and that's one of the biggest problems that we've had. Although there are other city council members back then that would have, told you otherwise. But yeah, definitely a lot of crime, theft of vehicles, shootings. Shootings was always been a problem, even about 3 or 4 years prior to the incident of 2020. I would even go back as far as saying 5 years. But yeah, it hasn't been a very safe place for a while.
Wow. So I didn't know they had a bunch of shootings up there. So yeah, because I always kind of thought it was like a I don't know, Seattle, San Francisco type place. Like, what kind of gang stuff were you talking about?
Well, you have, predominantly you had the black gangs, but then, the newer gangs are probably the most dangerous, and those are from Somalia. I remember the days when we'd show up to a gang shooting, and you might get lucky to find like 1 or 2 or 3 casings. Now with this new gangs, now they're shooting fully automatic weapons, so you're taking off probably like 150 or 200 casings off the street, and they don't care. So,
and Portland is pretty much anti-gun and stuff like that, right? Supposedly.
Yeah, I would venture to say that they're very anti-gun.
Well, and they got automatic friggin' weapons.
Yep.
Wow.
Bad guys have them. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, the funny thing for me is knowing that you got like Antifa and these like modern Marxists running around in the same area where you have like legit bad dudes, like serious bad shit going on, like shit we only see in freaking theaters of war or something. Have you ever seen those guys, run into each other or anything like that? Like, you got the Proud Boys running into Antifa. Like, you ever have Antifa mess with the wrong group of dudes?
Yeah, I mean that's happened. I would probably say 2 or 3 times in Portland. The Proud Boys I've been down there a few times to demonstrate. In most cases, we've had pretty much no incident with them. But then the other party shows up, and that's when it gets a little bit spicy. And I think there's been a few incidents. I can't recall exactly because it's been a while now, and plus I haven't been back to the States for a few years. And yeah, there's been a few incidents between those two groups.
Yeah, I'd be curious to see the average Antifa person running into like a legit gangbangers and just see how that goes down.
Yeah, it wouldn't be pretty.
Yeah, so when you've got like you guys get briefed when you go out, and when you have significant events, you got like a special briefing. What's the narrative like, or what's kind of like? I'm used to military briefings. I can't imagine it could be very different. I don't know, but what's the narrative like when you're in these briefings and you're getting like your latest updates about this stuff? Like, let's say groups of possible Antifa, I don't know, BLM protest, or you've got a specific protest happening and they start talking about the agitators. Is there any kind of narrative of like which one is more dangerous, or which one, you guys are looking at for agitators?
Yeah, we have our usual what we call roll call briefings right before before we hit the streets, and usually we get a little bit of intel of what's going on, like type of tactics that they're using. For example, hey, tonight they might be driving some types of vehicle filled with certain types of projectiles that they might be stashing at each corner of the city. So we focus on these types of vehicles that we've had previous intel on, and there's been a couple of times where we've spotted those vehicles and we've stopped them, and we've taken out some accelerants and rocks and bats and all sorts of different types of weapons that they could use against us.
Yeah. So is there anything like any kind of priority put on groups? Like, I know, I have buddies who are cops. Like, typically it's kind of like patriotic, usually conservative leaning type dudes. Is there any kind of narrative put on you guys from higher up about this group is going to be worse, or so if you've got like if you got like Antifa guys screwing around, are they ever painting a picture of like these Proud Boys or whatever patriot group needs to be profiled, or is there any kind of priority pushed? Is it?
Well, it's pretty much the entire 2020 riots. We dealt with just two groups of people. As far as I guess the bigger groups, so you have BLM and then you have Antifa. And it was hard. It was very difficult to differentiate between the two groups because they were pretty much acted in concert to whatever that they were doing that night. You can't tell them apart because, number one, they were all dressed the same way. They were all dressed in black. They have their mask, their gas mask, their helmets, knee pads, elbow pads. They show up to what they would call let's just say, a peaceful, demonstration, but then they show up in full kind of like a riot gear, And of course, most of the times it ended up being peaceful. A lot of the times they would, go and destroy property in Portland. But yeah, we focus a lot on the type of clothing that they would wear, because the people that want to do something bad, of course, they want to disguise their face, so they're all covered with mask or some type of a helmet sometimes, But yeah, we would focus on those people, and especially the ones that are armed with a bat or walking around with a chain. So.
Okay, so you're not really concerned with any kind of specific group. It's just whoever's causing trouble.
Yeah, pretty much. Like I said, it was. We already knew who we're dealing with. You have Antifa and you have BLM out there that were, protesting. You can see their signs. They're walking around with their placards as BLM, and of course, Antifa doesn't really have kind of a billboard that they walk around with, but you kind of know who they are, but just the way they're dressed.
Right. Yeah. The tactics they're using and some of their stuff they're throwing against you guys, it's, it sounds a lot like a insurgency. In some cases, pretty silly, but you bring up a lot of examples where it's like legit. So, leading up to that, so you guys see this coming, it's going to be bad. What's your support like from above? And, how are you guys being prepared for basically this freaking onslaught?
Well, as far as our immediate supervisors, we had their full support. They knew what it was like because they were out there with us. As far as our hire, we as a group didn't feel like we had their full support. We saw that night after night when we're out there taking bottles, rocks, sometimes Molotov cocktail, and then we just kind of sit there and wait for them to make the decision on when to call it declare as a riot. And before then, we really can't do anything until a riot is declared. But I think there's been a lot of nights to where they could have probably declared a riot a little bit earlier than what it was.
Yeah, and there's what's the acronym for the command, the mobile command that calls all those shots?
The incident command.
Okay.
The IC.
Yeah, and that's kind of who it sounded like screwed you guys a couple times. But are these, when these groups are coming in, like during this time frame, did they have like the proper permits and all that stuff?
I don't know much about the permitting with the demonstrations. We don't get to see any of that as law enforcement. That's just kind of up with the higher ups. I'm sure some did, and I'm sure some nights they didn't. But
yeah, because I know if the average American just got a group of people together and started marching down the street, it'd get shut down pretty freaking quick. So yeah, that's kind of one thing that made us on the outside watching it, is we're just like, well, you got the COVID stuff and you can't just gather in groups and do stuff. So, it's kind of like, why are they allowed to do this? So that's what I'm getting at. So if you don't know that, but how did you guys get alerts then? So if you didn't get like hey, there's going to be a planned demonstration here, you guys were just told, hey, we got this group coming through at this time, or how was that actually put down to you guys?
Yeah, we always have our intel folks just kind of watching the social media, and that's pretty much how they planned the demonstration was through social media. They would always get on social media and say, hey, let's meet here at this time. And then if you kind of watch that, it would kind of give you an idea of where and when. And then we took our orders from the tower. So we had a few people that were watching.
Okay. Yeah, it makes sense. That's the easiest way they can do that. Yeah. So you guys just are told to show up, and what's the plan? I mean, is there anything specific you're trying to guard, or any, what kind of walk us through where are you told to show up, and what are you actually told to protect or actually do?
Yeah, it was different almost every night, as far as location. And number one, we always try to protect, people and businesses. There are certain buildings that they might target, just like the central precinct was a target, probably, I don't know for how many nights in a row. That's why we ended up building a fence around the central precinct, because that also housed a lot of the people that are sitting in jail. So there's a lot of people down there that we have to protect. And of course, as you know, downtown Portland is basically a business area, so there's a lot of businesses there that, unfortunately we couldn't protect all of it because it's just, the sheer number of people that would show up by the thousands.
So yeah, what's the numbers you think? How many do you think they had versus you guys?
It was pretty much different each night. Some nights, we could have had probably as little as 300 or 400 people, but then other nights I've seen it as far as like a few thousands, and that's when it becomes very, very difficult because there's only so many of us, on the streets. That's why we had to rely so much on other agencies, other counties, and state patrol that would show up and assist, because it requires a lot of resources to handle that many people, in a location that wants to demonstrate.
Yeah, and so are you basically on shift an entire time, or as it goes into the night, you guys start rotating on and off shifts or anything?
No, you're pretty much on shift the entire time. I mean, as soon as you're notified, you show up, and you're there until it's done.
Damn, man. So you could be on duty for what was the longest you were out there for?
I think probably over 16, 17 hours, because once you're done with the demonstration, you still have to go back. You have to write your reports. They have to be submitted before you go home, especially if you're a part of a use of force. If you had to arrest somebody and you get into a fight, that takes a lot of paperwork. And and then of course you get up in the morning. Sometimes you have court, so you get to sleep for 3 or 4 hours. You go to court, and you after court, then you show up back to work, and you start the day all over again.
Damn, man. So there's no like planned rest cycle. So did it just happen to work out to where I know you mentioned in the book it kind of seemed like everything just kicked off at night. So what did they do during the day? They just went home and it was back to normal city business, or what?
Oh no, I'm sure it was a lot of planning, and then restocking whatever resource that they might have that they might require for whatever activity they're going to do. Because every night you can kind of see how they progress with their with the equipment that they brought. I mean, I remember like the very beginning, they were bringing cardboard, like utensils from the kitchen. Next thing you know, they got like plywood, 2x4s. I mean, it progressively gotten better as far as what they were bringing, as far as equipment, and that's probably all because they're they were getting funded too, and they were garnishing a lot more support as the riots went on. So their equipment got a lot better.
Did you guys ever hear about where their funding was coming from, or all this outside support?
No, I mean, but anybody can speculate. I mean, you just all you gotta do is watch the social media, and then you'll see a lot of the comments, even from really prominent people that would say, "Hey, support the people that are, protesting." So that one was a little bit aggravating because, we're out there every night. I mean, like risking our lives physically, and then you have people that would, support those that would want to hurt other people. So that was a little bit disheartening. But hey, we still had a job to do, and we did it.
Yeah, I mean, we saw all kinds of stuff. You had, did you see like the piles of bricks? Like we saw reports of piles of bricks being delivered and stuff.
Oh yeah, I mean that's part of that's part of what they would do as in preparation for the evening is that they would
and nobody was like trying to interdict that during the day or sabotage that at all.
No, of course. I mean, if we see that, we would try to stop that. We would take it away, and that's part of what we did during the day while it was still daylight, is just to roam around the city looking for anything that they would try to use as a weapon, as a projectile, towards us at night.
Okay, so your regular like day patrol guys, they're kind of like that's kind of like added to their list of duties.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's just you just have to be more vigilant during the day, where you can see a lot better and you can kind of see what they're doing.
Were the guys out on patrol during the day? I mean, did they have any issues running around? Like, were they patrolling alone, or did they do the 2 people per car thing?
No, ever since that incident started, we started doubling up and sometimes tripling up in the car, depending on the vehicle that we had. But that whole patrolling by yourself, that wasn't very safe at that point. I don't think it is safe now, but we changed that pretty rapidly.
Yeah, it's just strange, man. I don't know. What do you think is with that they would just come out at night and cause a ruckus? But if they really wanted to accomplish, they like, why not? Okay. And he's kicked out. He said too much. All right, he's back in. Hey. All good?
Yep, all good. Yeah. I mean, it's they choose, of course, the evening time because they can kind of hide what they're doing, and then of course they're all dressed in black, so it's harder for us to kind of see what they're doing at night. But of course, it's also, I think at that point in time we also had the fires that was going on at the same time, so it was pretty hot too during the day.
Yeah, I mean, do you guys, what did it look like they had for an actual purpose? Like, was it just to cause chaos, or were they going after specific buildings or areas, or did they just say we're going to meet here and just destroy stuff?
I mean, from my personal perspective, from what I saw, it was just sheer anarchy. I mean, I understand that whole police reform, defunding the police. Of course, that was a really bad idea. But no, I mean, it was just basically destroying everything that they could, that they could get their hands on. And that was pretty much what we did. A lot of the nights was just trying to defend property, all the businesses that we're trying to destroy.
So, I don't know. For me, it looked like just a lot of angry young kids just using an excuse to act up. Is that kind of what you saw?
Yeah, I mean,
just causing chaos.
Yeah, just causing chaos. And
so then, what was y'all's? What were your rules of engagement or constraints, like to make an arrest or to actually take somebody in, if they're out there purposely destroying shit, being assholes, like what are you guys actually told to do?
Well, if they're out there just demonstrating, exercising their freedom of speech and to demonstrate, yeah, we're told to just leave them alone. But the minute they start destroying property or hurting other people, and that's when we would step in and put our hands on them and arrest them.
Okay, so at night that's got to be pretty tough because, like you mentioned in the book, somebody would come out, do something, and then disappear into the crowd.
Yes, that was very difficult, and we had spotters that would be up in the building that would kind of like try to keep an eye on that person so we know where they're at. But once we declare a riot, we always give them time to disperse. And if anyone is still in that location at the end of the time that we're given to disperse, and then we'll just start arresting people. Because at that time they've basically ignored a lawful order to disperse.
Okay, so treat it like a protest. Some knuckleheads do things, and then once you guys get the word, once they start putting out that it's a riot, it's basically you guys shut it down.
Yeah,
and then
we need to. I mean, it takes a lot for as if you saw in the book, it takes a lot for incident command to even declare a riot. I mean, it's got to be pretty bad. So we have to act quickly as soon as we get that word that, hey, this is now declared a riot, and then we get the order to go in and start arresting people. We have to do it pretty fast.
Well, it sounds like with all the agitators in the crowd, so you guys are basically just holding a line or a position, just getting abused, getting shit thrown at you, trying to locate these agitators. Were there points where you guys are trying to push up that it needs to be deemed a riot and it wasn't? Or, I mean...
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately for us on the front lines, we absolutely... We can't communicate. I mean, the person that's communicating to the incident command is the sergeant that's in charge on the ground. And it's been done a few times to where, I mean... he or she didn't directly say, hey, this is getting to be at that level where there's a riot, but you can kind of tell with the frustration with the voice. But like I said before, there's been times to where I personally would have probably declared a riot a lot sooner than what it was when it was declared.
Do you think there was something coming from above that was letting it be? Because I can't remember the difference between which news coverage I saw of shit that was on fire. But, pretty much for most of us, we just imagine all the cities were being burned and attacked. But do you think there was, some guidance from above to let shit go a lot further than it should have?
Well, I'm not going to speculate that, but I think it's probably a balancing act of allowing those who were peacefully protesting to protest, but then you had these pockets of people that were agitators, and probably the same people throughout the night or the duration of the riots. But I think for them. As far as the leaders, it was a balancing act, and of course, there's a lot of pressure, political pressure, also from I would say from the city leaders.
Right, I can imagine the city council there isn't very, pro law and order.
No, absolutely not. I mean, when I can mention Joanna Hardesty. I mean, she spearheaded the, defunding the police in Portland, and as you know, that was a horrible idea. Then it's a horrible idea now. There are some grave consequences of demonizing and and defunding the police. A lot of cities across the U.S., especially Portland, they're still trying to recover from what happened in 2020 because they defunded their police, and again, that's going to create low morale and a lot of resignations, retirement because of it, and then you're going to have a hard time recruiting personnel because of that. Nobody wants to work for an organization where you're seen as a kind of a, let's say it like, not as a community leader, but someone that's that's villainized because of the exact job that you do, and that's how a lot of us felt, is that we didn't get the full support that we should have had in time of crisis. In times of crisis, your leaders that you have are supposed to step up and have your back, but I don't think we fully got that.
Yeah, and you can always tell, because you'll see, like, when something does, I mean, you guys deal with crazy shit all day long, but whenever something does kind of come out that is gonna it's gonna be politicized, you can tell pretty early what your leaders are gonna be like versus their initial statements, and we could always tell in those areas. It's like, man, yeah, they hate their own cops, because they would immediately come out, and like you mentioned with George Floyd, like, you could just see the leaders already rolling over on their people before even starting an investigation and actually getting to the bottom of it. And it's kind of like, that's kind of a problem in this country anyway, but thinking about just the general rule of law, like, I know some buddies who were cops in not major metros like that, but, kind of more urban, more built up areas, and they're just a hell of a lot more conservative, like, and, that point where, like, your incident command is supposed to deem it a riot, that would already have begun as soon as agitators come out of the crowd. So as long as the majority of the crowd is just yelling or holding up signs and all this shit, it's cool. But as soon as, like, a cop gets hit or something, they're like, all right, that's it, shut it down. And, I think that's like a big contrast you see in these like Portland, Seattle kind of areas. I mean, what's going through y'all's mind when you're showing up? So, like, how long did this period last where you guys had the brunt of all these riots? Was that the whole summer?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty much the whole summer. I mean, I 100% agree with your statement too. I mean, the minute that one bottle flies into the air, it is no longer a peaceful protest, especially if it hits an officer. I mean, right there and then, it should have been declared a riot. But unfortunately, like I said earlier, I mean, it's a balancing act for them. I understand, that they have to appease those that are, I mean, like I said, it was a mixture of people that are peacefully protesting, but then there's agitators. So yeah, it was.
Yeah, I mean, I can, and on the same side, it is political. If in Portland, if you had like 2,000 freaking Proud Boys show up at midnight, I could imagine your upper level people would smack down a lot harder on that. I think that's what a lot of us see from the outside. It's like, okay, well, you got to support the Constitution and let people do their thing, but I could imagine going into like San Francisco with a Trump flag or something with a bunch of my buddies, and I'm pretty sure a San Francisco cop is going to walk past the meth head and the bums on the street and come ask where my protest permit is, just because, not on him, but because of the guidance they get, and that's kind of the contrast you see in the areas. But all right, so, I mean, what does that do to you if you're dealing with shit like this for that long of a period and you're going into work You know, guys, you got to check out the book because he's just got bruises, scratches. They got dudes going to the hospital, just getting, you know, beat down every night. What does that do to you, knowing that you're going into that and you might not even be backed up?
Oh, it's demoralizing, especially when you have a district attorney. You know, we had Mike Schmidt that that would go publicly and say, "Hey, you know, I'm only prosecuting, you know, a certain type of arrest that you guys will make." And with that, of course, it emboldened the you know, the people that we're dealing with. I mean, night after night, we would meet, we would see people, and they would say, "Hey, you know what, Uncle Mike has our back, so you can't do anything to us." You know, we heard that time and time again. And but what what made me go on night after night is the fact that, hey, you know what, I can't back down now because I got to protect the guys that's to my left and to my right. And it's pretty much, you know, the same folks that you would see every night, same people that you work with every night. And of course, we kind of lose people here and there from injuries. And then, you know, hey, you got to step up. So, yeah, it was very, very difficult. It's very painful to kind of think, hey, we're going to go out there, we're going to sacrifice, you know, our bodies, and at the same time, we have, you know, certain leaders in the organization that don't support what we're doing. So yeah, it was very, very difficult, and I think that's why a lot of people in Portland, law enforcement, at least in PPB, left the organization because of the lack of support. And that's really sad because you know, we've had some really, really good officers in Portland, and I think if aside from all of that in 2020, if you take a look at Portland police, it's probably one of the most, you know, well-trained, you know, police officers I've seen anywhere else. You know, I have a lot of friends that are law enforcement across the nation, you know, that I meet during my military training or travels, and we do things that other departments they don't even do. So yeah, it's very sad.
Yeah, so I was going to ask, did you have any other friends in law enforcement around the country that were dealing with similar issues, but you got to kind of collaborate and see how they were dealing with theirs?
Oh yeah, I mean, I've got a couple of friends. Perfect example. They work in a city, not a city, but a smaller town that's kind of more of has like the conservative leadership, and they didn't put up with anything. I mean, they probably had one night of violence, and after that, they arrested everybody, and then next thing you know, they didn't have any more. So it has a lot to do with the political atmosphere in whatever city that you work in.
Yeah, I bet. That's yeah, man, so a lot of the guys that left that department, did they just go somewhere else to do law enforcement, or at least the ones you know, or did they just get out of law enforcement?
Both. Most went to a different, I guess, different state or even different county. And they're happy. They're happy that they departed Portland, and then some just got out completely. And you know, a couple of them went back to the military. Some of them, you know, went to the private sector. But yeah, and then some stayed. Some of my friends are still there, and they're still seeing kind of the slow progress. You know, that they're, you know, the city's trying to recover from the 2020 riots and the defunding the police.
So they're actually trying to turn it around?
Yeah, I mean, they really are. I mean, from what I hear, they've, you know, refunded, you know, the police department, and they're trying to hire more people. And I think the biggest problem that they're having now is retention. I mean, it's hard to it's hard to retain people when they know that they can go to a better place to work for.
Right, because how much has the situation actually changed on the ground there?
Well, I don't know exactly a lot of the details, but I know that they're slowly are able to do, their normal routine police work on the street. For a while, our hands were tied. There were laws that made it difficult for us to conduct investigations, out on patrol. Made it difficult for us to do pursuits, you know. But I think just talking to some of my coworkers that it's gotten a little bit better in the last months, in the last year, as far as having the ability to do a little bit more police work on the street.
Do you know where that's coming from? Is that a city council thing, or do you know where that push is coming from, or is a lot of people just learned a lesson?
I think it's probably coming from the community because they're probably tired of seeing all the shootings and the thefts, and all the violence in the city. The crime is just running rampant. So I'm sure a lot of that is the pressure that they're receiving from the community in Portland, which is kind of forcing the city council members and all the leadership to actually do something about it.
Well, I mean, that's actually kind of cool to hear people learning a lesson. We don't, it doesn't seem like it. So kind of goes back to when I was thinking earlier, when all this just defund the police stuff was coming out, you got people like, fuck yeah, ACAB, man. And then you got people on the other extreme, like fighting that. And then I think a lot of logical people were just like, okay, and replace them with what? So did you, yeah, I know in some areas they were talking about social workers and unarmed kind of community leaders. Did you see any of that kind of stuff coming out where it's like, instead of an armed policeman responding to calls?
Yeah. I mean, we have that in Portland. But they go to low priority calls. But the problem is, even a low priority call can turn into something that's very, very high priority. It can be volatile. You just never know what you're walking into. It could be as innocent as a guy that's just yelling on the street because he had a bad day, and that could turn into a shooting. You just don't know. That's right. Why. The problem is you have a lot of lawmakers who are not law enforcement that are trying to change policies, but they don't understand the impacts to that. They just don't realize that, hey, you know what? It's actually pretty dangerous to go out there without the ability to protect yourself. And especially when you have criminals out there who don't care about the law, and they're going to carry a gun, they're going to carry a knife. And then when you introduce another aspect of, having a quasi law enforcement person out there who's not armed, and then of course it's a lot of the times we have to show up with them because they're not armed. I'm going to move location here because I got to plug in my computer. It's about to die.
Yeah, cool, man. Yeah, I think a lot of people watching this have probably seen the videos of social workers just getting mauled because they walk into like a apartment domestic dispute, and that's the thing, man. All right, so I wanted to get into some of this shit we're seeing from the supposed right as well, the anti-police stuff, but you can get on YouTube and find badge cam all over the place. There's all kinds of cool channels showing this stuff, like, especially during those times, and I had buddies who were doing this stuff, and they're like, dude, a domestic dispute at 2 a.m. They're like, that's more scary than shit I saw in Iraq, just because a drunk freaking hopped up husband who's mad could just open the door and start shooting at you. And it's like, you're not rolling in there like it's Baghdad with a squad of dudes behind you. It's like you're Officer Joe Schmo going out there. And so you could find these videos of these social workers in the metro areas. They were like, oh, there's a guy with mental issues, and it's like, that'd be a red flag for me, and they're like, go out there and talk to him, and they're trying to talk to him, and the guy's just beating the crap out of them because they're just, like bureaucratic social workers. So that was just the hilarity for us, they're like, defund the police, and we're like, in a major city, and replace them with what? The freaking gangs, because that's kind of who's going to take over and all this stuff. But it's actually kind of cool to hear you say that they're actually trying to reverse that, though. So that I had no idea. What would be the recruiting? What's the recruiting like to try to get people to join law enforcement in areas like that?
I'm sure, just like any other agencies, they would probably try to offer, some type of a bonus to come in, and some incentives also for current officers to bring in other people. As you know, it's being a cop is no longer that glorious job like it used to be, where you're seen as a hero. But not anymore. I remember growing up where, I said, yes, sir, no, ma'am. You respected police officers. Not today. Today you just kind of see how the media has villainized and, just kind of basically identified a specific group of people, law enforcement, as bad people, which is sad because, most cops are good. And we take care of our own. If we see a cop that's not doing the right thing, we get rid of them. We of course, in the proper manner, and that's part of the coaches that are working on the street, that are getting these new people. That's part of what they have to look out for, is say, hey, is this guy gonna be a good cop, or is he gonna do the right thing, or is he not? And there's process for that, but yeah, there's a bad apple in every profession, but unfortunately, as a police officer at that time, as far as in the eyes of the media, we were all bad, which is sad.
Yeah, the badge cam stuff. I remember when that stuff was coming out. Some of my cop buddies weren't happy about it, but it seems like that might also help too, because when something's blown out of proportion, people can FOIA request that. The news usually wants to hide what they want to hide, but it kind of seems like you can actually just go find that and be like, oh, well, he didn't just pull the guy over and pull him out and start beating him. The guy actually, did all this other shit beforehand. Because that's a problem too, is the media.
Yeah, I 100% agree with body cams. I wish we had body cams during the riots. I wish we had body cams prior to the riots. Body cams now, but I don't know where Portland is headed with that. I think they're kind of going to that now. There's a few officers that have body cams.
So you guys didn't have them during the riots?
No, we didn't have them. There are certain personnel that did have them. We had personnel, that's kind of watching over everything else that had body cams. But as far as like your normal patrol officer, we didn't have body cams.
Damn. Okay.
Yeah. I've been in a few situations to where, I wish I had a body cam. He would have, kind of made my life a little bit easier.
Yeah, well, you had this one incident. It was like a major. It was kind of like the final blow for you, where you had to tackle this person, kind of, nothing out of control, but kind of rough him up a little bit to get him under control. Hey, well, there was a camera on you for that, right? Or you want to get into that?
No, I didn't have a camera, but we knew. This was like day 90 something of the riot. So everybody's filming. You can just go and assume that every person on the street has a camera pointed on you. And I knew that. I didn't have a body cam, but we were just doing business like we normally did. We had a group of people that refused to move. Riot was declared, and I think that was the night where they attempted to. I think they did start a fire inside a dental clinic. And that was the night where they advertised that they were going to burn the mayor's home, because it was his birthday. So yeah, I like I said, I wish I had a body cam, but I didn't.
So when you got that intel about them attacking the mayor's home, did like anybody on your team think, that might not be so bad? They'll learn, because the mayor kind of helped facilitate all that. I mean, does that cross y'all's mind at all?
Well, yeah, I mean, we all have our own internal thoughts, but at the same time, it doesn't matter who that person is or whose home it is. We still got to protect that property, and that's what we do. Um, Even if the mayor was out there, getting beaten up, we would rush in and protect him. That's just what police officers do, and that's what we did. We showed up. We expected a large crowd, and yeah, we sat there and took orders from the tower, and when we got the order, we moved in.
Did you get a thanks for that, or was there any kind of change in the attitude after that from the mayor?
No, I think for me, from then on, that's kind of things went downhill, just because of the optics. He didn't look good, although you can't really, you never get the full story by just watching a video, especially from just one angle of the video or a couple angles. As you
Right.
as you've read the book, it looked like I was just punching this guy on the face, but I wasn't even punching him on the face. I was punching him on the helmet, trying to control him from fighting back. And at that point in time, my goal was, hey, we're in a riot situation. We're surrounded by hundreds of people who are throwing projectiles. We got to get him in custody as soon as possible. Um, so that's pretty much my mentality was, hey, we got to place this guy in handcuffs as soon as possible so we can get out of here.
So was there ever a time out there where you're actually worried about your life?
Yeah, there's been a couple incidents to where you just never know if you're gonna get that Molotov cocktail thrown at you, and that's a very dangerous thing, especially with the synthetic vest that we're wearing. That hits you square in the chest, is pretty much done, unless somebody's standing there waiting to just put that out within a microsecond that you get hit with a Molotov cocktail. And there's of course there are times where you might get hit in the head with a rock. At the time where you're kind of transitioning from taking your helmet to get a little bit of fresh air, putting it back on. But yeah, there's always that fear of getting hit with something crazy.
Yeah, I mean when they're attacking your precinct there toward the end, that sounded freaking sketchy as hell, man. Like the whole freaking building was about to catch on fire. Guys, you got to read the book, man. It kind of reads like a freaking war story. But there's like a whole, condition set, a build up to it, and then there's like just this. What the hell are we going to do? And then a final build up. You want to talk about that incident where they're just. I mean, you guys got. I remember one specific thing. You guys were actually policing up glass and all the shit they had thrown in there to use for evidence later.
Yeah, that was probably, I would have to say, the worst time ever. Of all the different incidents that I've been a part of with the riots, that's probably the worst time, because there was always talk about how Central Precinct was attacked, uh, other precincts been attacked, and we've always talked about, yeah, we're not going to let them touch this precinct. Even our leaders said, yeah, they're not coming here. If they do come here, they're not going to touch the precinct. So there was a buildup of like, yeah, we're protecting our home, and obviously that didn't happen. We were stuck inside. We were ordered to stay inside, and we had people on the rooftop. We were ordered to back away from the edge because we were, you know, we were agitating the crowd outside. So we were basically left completely blind. We had no spotters on the rooftop because we can't see if you back out far enough. You can't see into the crowd, and so we pretty much contained ourselves, inside our own precinct with nobody outside. And so we kind of focused a lot of our officers in the front of the precinct in the entrance. Luckily, that was a bulletproof glass, but they started hammering it. They started throwing rocks at it. Next thing you know, they shove a 2x4 right across the handles of the two front doors. So we're pretty much wedged in there. You can't open the doors. And then next thing you know, they had a garbage can, started dumping wood in the garbage can and some type of an accelerant. And the next thing you know, there's a fire going on. And at this time, they're still beating the doors with rocks, trying to break the doors down. And pretty much, as you look at it from a person on the inside, yeah, they're trying to lock us in the building and then burn it down.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was pretty scary times.
But for like 2.5 months, they're just kind of randomly running around the streets. What do you guys have any idea of like why all of a sudden they targeted your actual precinct, or why not start that way?
Well, I don't know the exact reason why they finally went to East Precinct. So our East Precinct is pretty much away from the city center. It's probably a good, I would say, 20-minute drive from the city center. It's on the east side of Portland, almost next to Gresham. So it wasn't that area where they could actually meet. It wasn't a focal point. The focal point was Central Precinct. That was downtown core Portland. East Precinct was kind of like far away, and there wasn't really a good place where they can kind of like collect, where they can meet. So it was good for us in that way, and then of course, once you're that far away, that means all of your help is also that far away. Central Precinct was that far away, and then everybody else had to come to East Precinct. But we had like a riot squad that was posted a few blocks away that was just still waiting for orders to come in to stop these guys from coming into the East Precinct, because like I said, we were kind of trapped in the building. We weren't allowed to go out.
Yeah, it's just strange, like why all of a sudden, especially if it's that far away now. So you guys just got word that, hey, this is where they're coming tonight, and you're like, all right, well, defend the base.
Yeah, I mean that was pretty much. We were out doing normal duty. We were out there taking 911 calls. Next thing you know, we get the call on the radio and said, "Hey, everyone, return to base." And that was our cue, like they were coming. So we all ran to base. We got guys on the rooftop. We got guys on the side doors, outside. Kind of like doing like a walking patrol. Next thing you know, we're all told to come in and stay inside.
Yeah, and is that the one where you guys, like you said, the riot team was staged?
Yeah.
What were they waiting on? Why didn't they come in earlier?
Well, they were waiting on the order from the incident command to basically declare a riot so they can go in. Until that's done, they can't move.
So even with fires going and it getting that bad, when did they finally come in?
They finally declared a riot. I mean, just probably a few minutes after the fire started, and you can just tell on the radio that the sergeant that was in charge of the riot, response team. He was frustrated. He was like, "Hey, can we come in? Can we come in?" They're setting they're setting fire in front of the building. Eventually, he got the word that he can come in, and that's when, kind of they came in and dispersed the crowd. And we were able to actually pry the door open from the inside and kind of help out. So we went outside and helped disperse the crowd.
Yeah. See, this is a world where I'm lost because I'm thinking about tactics in combat, and some of it kind of aligns. Like you talk about pulling people inside. So like all the other instances, you had that fence around your precinct, and you could have guys out there on the ground. Yeah. So you're taking abuse and stuff, but you're still out there kind of protecting the building. You got people up on the rooftops and stuff. You got these badass lights. But thinking about this scenario where you're kind of collapsed in, that just sounds like a horrible defense. So in my mind, I got all kinds of crazy scenarios, but see, this is the thing where even some people on the other side will just play it off as cops, just do whatever the hell they want. But like, what is constraining you guys from? I don't know, reacting in some other way. Like, I don't know, you got pepper spray, fucking grenades to throw out the door, or the sandbag stuff. Well, I mean,
one of our probably most important order that we have to abide by is no independent action. Of course, there's a lot of us that would have done things differently. I mean, I personally would have said, hey, you know what?
What does that mean? No independent action.
You can't do anything by yourself, like away from the team, without the order from the incident command. Like, we cannot, unless it's life and death situation, we got to intervene. We can't just go out there and engage the crowd without the order from the incident command. We can't just start arresting people, while they're demonstrating.
So on this East Precinct example, where is Incident Command physically located?
They are probably, I would say, a few miles away. They're at the what we call the training division. And if you can just, like, you've been in the Army, you kind of see like the war room, the ops room.
Right.
That's pretty much what they had at the training division, where they had a bunch of cameras, a bunch of TVs. They're watching, live stream videos and things like that.
Yeah, I'm kind of picturing a talk.
Yeah, definitely.
So they have cameras where they can see a live feed.
Yeah, absolutely.
Dang, man. So they're still pretty separated from what's actually going on, though. Yeah,
because everybody, that was a part of that riot. They were pretty much live streaming. I mean, you have your normal, like, I can't remember the exact names of these people that actually ran a YouTube channel, but yeah, we had a few of those people who constantly ran a YouTube channel throughout the night. That was filming. So there was always a camera in whatever situation that was going on.
Yeah, that's I saw some of the updated talks in Afghanistan. They got PTIDs and raid cameras and all that, but yeah, that still kind of sounds like the shit we would deal with, where the people making certain calls are still they're making these calls from like a safe environment, so you can see chaos on the camera and stuff, but you don't feel bricks being thrown at your head and flames, and they're using tear gas and shit against you guys too, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's and of course too, it's I can kind of looking back at that situation and kind of see the point of them kind of hesitating, because they kind of wanted to show the public what these people are capable of doing. And then the fact that, oh yeah, you guys are inside a hard building, the glass is bulletproof. We want to show the public what these guys are capable of, starting a fire in a building when there's people are inside. Yeah, I see that portion, but at the same time, they don't actually feel the emotion of what's going on inside that building. Because we were the ones looking, on the other side of that glass, waiting for the glass to actually cave in, because you can just start seeing the spider crack. I mean, the glass was cracking. and any time it was going to give out. And then you have hundreds of people behind that glass pushing in, and there's probably maybe 15 of us inside that lobby in the front in the precinct, and yeah, we're all frustrated. We're all looking at each other like, why haven't they declared a riot? Why can't we go outside and actually defend the precinct? Instead of just allowing them to throw rocks, start a fire. And our guys from the top can even, stand on the side of the building because they're afraid of agitating other people, that are rioting. So a lot of stuff didn't make sense. I mean, I was part of that crew that was on the rooftop at first, but I was told to, back away from the rooftop. So I went down to the lobby to help out.
Yeah, well, I mean, if somebody was thinking that we got to let the public see how bad this is, it kind of worked, man. Because there's the American public got to watch as most people were told to stay at home and not spread a flu. They got to watch, a bunch of crazy kids just go destroy cities. So, so were you keeping up with the media during this and watching them call them like peaceful protests and all that, and seeing what, contrast it with what you're dealing with at night versus how the media is actually reporting it?
Yeah, it was hard to get away from it. You heard it on the radio, you saw it on TV, right, during roll call. And because of that, it kind of inspired me to start writing, journal entries. So that's what I did. Like almost every other night, I would sit down and kind of write, all the events that took place. And because I was seeing just left and right, just media coverage on these, so-called peaceful protests. And I told myself, someday I'm going to get this story out so people can actually see, actually know what happened during the riots and the stuff that we went through as police officers, the hardship and, the unnecessary, verbal abuse and physical abuse that we had to go through, just, to protect, the citizens and the property of Portland.
Yeah, and you mentioned being worried about being followed home from work. Did anybody deal with that? Like actually have people follow them or engagements outside of these riots with these people?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, more often than not, they would just sit outside the precinct and wait for you to come home. Wait for you to get out to go home. And I've been followed a few times. There's been a couple of times where I've had to get escorted, home because of that, and other officers have been followed home. So that was always a worry, and you just never know with these people. You never know what they're capable of. And the fact that they can sit there for hours and wait for you to come out of the garage to follow you home, it kind of tells you that their state of mind and kind of gives you an idea what kind of intent that they might have.
Right. So, are you got to be sizing these people up to see what kind of threat they are. They look like, the kind of soy boy stereotype, or is it the numbers that was a threat to you, or just the fact that they were doing that?
No, it's just the fact that they're, that they would actually even try. And yeah, we use that term a lot, the soy boys, they're meaning that, they're not really capable of, any type of physical aggression. But even then, if you look at in history, the type of guys that committed, heinous acts as far as, like the mass shootings, these aren't like your typical tough guys. These are like, you look at them, you're like, oh, they look like, a bunch of nerds, bunch of geeks, Yeah, perfect example is like that shooting at Frontier Middle School in Moses Lake. Barry Lokitis, I don't know if you remember that from 2007. He was your normal, like, kind of geeky looking student, but he walked into the school and shot up a few students and a teacher, So you just never know. You can't really like size up a person and say, oh yeah, he can follow me home, but he's not going to do anything. You just kind of have to think the worst, that they're gonna follow you all the way home, and then you know. So you gotta do some evasive movements, and I never really drove home the same way every night. I would always go a different route. Even sometimes it would take me like an extra 30 minutes to get home. I would do that just to make sure that I don't get followed all the way home. And there was one time to where I was being followed, all the way to the city, and then out of the city. So I took it up to the mountains. I drove completely way out of my normal driving direction, and took that person to the mountains.
Damn, man, you guys got some restraint.
Yeah.
You ever think about texting one of your buddies that's getting off and being like, hey, let's lure these guys up to the mountains and just fucking beat the shit out of them?
I mean, yeah, of course you kind of that kind of stuff goes through your mind, but at the same time, it's you got to be a little bit smarter, and then in that.
Well, you're much smarter than me, man.
No, I mean, trust me. I mean, the thoughts like that have crossed my mind a few times, and because you just get frustrated. I mean, every person has a level of of frustration threshold, and the 2020 riots definitely like brought me to that place to where you kind of start thinking about, man, what am I doing here? But at the same time, it's like, hey, you know what? My buddies are there. I'm not going to quit on them, and hopefully they don't quit on me. So, but it was that camaraderie that's like we have in the military that kind of kept us together.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I don't know. I got all kinds of shit going through my mind. We got mass too. Let's bring them up to the woods and do this ambush. But yeah, because, you probably got a camera on you at all times. So you can't...
Yeah, exactly.
Even off duty, you can't be retaliating.
Yeah, I mean the way that I always treat it is like, as soon as I step out of my house, I'm going to assume that there's a camera on me, and driving to work, leaving work, while I'm working. I mean, we're in a time. You remember back then when we didn't have cell phones. I mean, I remember in high school I didn't have a cell phone.
Yeah.
Kind of aging myself, but I didn't have a cell phone until I was 20 or 21 years old. And now everybody has a cell phone, so you just got to assume that everybody's filming.
Right. Which, I mean, it's kind of working out, kind of good and bad, but it's kind of working out because now you do have a free press everywhere. So, there's like a lot of shit, the news, the way the media is going, they just... like I can get on Twitter, like with this Trump shit, and I can actually see people's cell phone videos. I don't have to wait on what the TV wants to type up and kind of play and release. So
yeah,
it's kind of good and bad. I remember my only experience with anything close to this was in Baghdad, when it was so safe in the early days. We would have protests come up to the green zone checkpoint we would run, and it was nowhere near what you guys dealt with, but just the volume of people coming at us shouting. That's what is something I don't think anybody can understand unless they've been through that. Just seeing a mass of people in front of you that you don't know what can happen. And this was during the day too. We didn't have these protests at night, so
yeah, that
adds a whole other element. I remember a couple times they would call us to fix bayonets. It's the only time
Jeez.
I was told to fix bayonets in the GWAT, but I was a saw gunner at the time, so it sucked for me. Yeah, that's just, dude.
Yeah, it's definitely hard when, I mean, I can relate with you as far as it's different feeling when you're in Iraq overseas dealing with this stuff, but when you're dealing with it at home, and then you go home at night, to your actually house, and then knowing that it's just in your backyard, then you have to get up and do it all over again, being so close to home. And I mean, I'm telling you, there was a couple of times I had a video of one where we were marching up the streets. I mean, left and right, there's garbage cans on fire on both sides. and there's projectiles flowing over us, fireworks and whatever improvised explosive device that they were throwing. I kind of made me think of like being back in the war zone. It was kind of it's a weird feeling. And then there was a helicopter flying above, and I had that video at one point, but then I don't know what happened to my phone where I lost that video. But yeah, there's been a few incidents to where it kind of like tripped a certain memory that I have being overseas. But yeah, it's definitely different having to deal with it at home, because that's that kind of stuff you don't expect to deal with on American soil.
Right. Yeah. We're supposed to be the civilized people.
Yeah, exactly.
Plus, I've dismounted from the back of a Bradley in situations like that where bricks are flying and we got Kevlars on, and at the end of the day, we're in a war zone, so you still have that rifle, and if you shoot somebody or rough somebody up, it's like, it's a war zone. Yeah, you're on American soil, you're dealing with Americans, and you're just, I can't imagine. But I mean, were you guys like, you were able to use your pepper spray and stuff, right? Or was that just when you would go to make an arrest?
No, we were able to use it, as needed. But it's a lot of what we did on the front line was just basically like trying to push the crowd back as they're trying to come in or try to break a fence. And and then I've gotten pepper sprayed a couple of times by someone from the crowd. And it's luckily we have they have the shield that we wear on our faces. But at the same time, they know that too, so they come underneath and spray you under the shield. And it's hard to focus on just one person when you have like multiple, like people just in front of you. That's aggressive. So yeah, I mean, I've used my pepper spray a couple of times, but a lot of the times I'd like to have both of my hands free. I don't want to be holding on to anything because I might have to either one help a buddy next that's fighting with somebody, then I have to get my hands on them and then help another one. It was pretty much like that every night. It was just like physical altercation, sprinting, arresting people, sprinting, possibly fighting with somebody. So,
what's strange is how much you guys deal with people with guns. We've arrested some people that were actually carrying guns, but like I said, I mean, Portland has a huge problem with gangs and gun violence. But none during these riots, like any shootings or you guys getting shot at during these riots.
I don't recall like getting shot at, but I mean, we've heard gunshots during the riot. I don't think they were intended for us, but I mean, we've had improvised explosive device thrown at us, of course. But like I said, we've arrested a few people carrying different types of weapons. I mean, one guy even had like this bayonet style hidden under the umbrella, and brass knuckles. Like spears, knives, guns. So yeah, people have brought. I mean, luckily they didn't. Nothing ever happened. To either one of us. As far as getting shot. With a weapon during the riots. But but the way I see it, you throw a Molotov cocktail at an officer, that's just as bad as shooting that officer.
Yeah. Or bricks flying through the air.
Yeah, or bricks flying through the air, yeah. That could hit you just like below the helmet.
Yeah. So I'm just curious because Portland's pretty strict on guns. Were you allowed to carry like concealed?
Yeah,
like off duty.
As a police officer, I can pretty much carry anywhere in the United States. So the thing with Oregon is it's an open carry state. That means
Right.
you can carry in the open, but what you got to watch out for is city codes. Like Portland has a city code that says no carrying any weapons in the city, loaded weapon in the city, unless you have a concealed weapons permit.
Okay.
So
Yeah, I had done some work in Corvallis, and that was like my first kind of Pacific Northwest area I'd been in, where I just saw people walking around with guns on their hips and ARs and shit. That was pretty cool.
yeah.
But yeah, I can imagine the city ordinance is going to be different. But okay.
Yeah, the thing about Oregon is, I mean, geographically and politically is divided. If you start going kind of like to the eastern Oregon is completely different than the Salem, Portland, Oregon. I mean, that's kind of why you probably saw in the news that parts of Oregon want to go into Idaho.
Yeah, or you got like the state of Jefferson, that's, you know, kind of linking California, Oregon, and I think they've gotten popularity in Washington too. And that's kind of part of that, because you got, it's like anywhere else. You're gonna have most of that bullshit in the metro areas, and the country parts of the state are gonna be, you know, a hell of a lot different than the city.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think we could start wrapping it up, man.
Yeah.
If
Thanks
you
for
got,
having me.
yeah, I mean, I'd like to hear, you know, your final thoughts on what we're kind of looking at. Yeah, I mean, I was thinking things would get ridiculous after this election, no matter which way it goes. But you know, just curious to hear your thoughts on what. I think most people following me are already thinking about this stuff, but just from your perspective, you know, like, what do you see do you see the same kind of bullshit happening, or worse, or, you know, whatever you want to throw out on that?
Yeah, I mean, personally, I think with the election coming up, you're going to see an uptick in a lot of demonstrations across the city. And I think it's going to be probably a lot worse if Donald Trump gets elected, because we've seen that before. Like you mentioned before, I think it was 2016,
Right.
all the demonstration that took place, and I think it's going to be a lot worse this time around, because it's just the way that the media, the way they demonize, you know, Donald Trump. And that's part of the reason why you have a lot of this stuff that's going on right now. It's just because of what people see and hear in the media, and they react to it. I mean, not everybody's. You can't look at everybody like you and me, like, oh yeah, I can formulate my own thoughts. But there's a lot of people out there that would just physically just listen to the media and think, okay, yeah, you know what, they're probably right. You know, they can't formulate their own thoughts. So with the negative publicity that Donald Trump has had in the last, I don't know, years, I think if he ends up winning that election, that there's going to be some massive demonstration across the nation. And like I said, that's an opportunity for certain groups of people that they're going to exploit, just a reason to demonstrate, a reason to cause chaos, to destroy property, you know. So there's people out there that's always waiting for an opportunity to demonstrate.
Yeah, it's like I was saying earlier. It kind of sounds like just a lot of freaking fit throwing, which you're gonna have in any group. But
Yeah.
kind of sad that certain groups seem to get away with more. But it sounds like a lot of that was just on the fault of the higher up leadership, people running the show. But it's real quick. You know, you mentioned people trying to turn that around in Portland. Have you heard about any of these other cities trying to, you know, like refund law enforcement and get themselves out of this?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Minnesota was the first one that was trying to refund their police, but I think every city across the United States is trying to refund their police department because of the uptick in violence and the lawlessness that's kind of running rampant in a lot of the cities in the U.S. And unfortunately, they can refund all they want, but the damage is done as far as um, you know the morale of these officers, and of course a lot of the good cops have retired. There's still a lot of good cops out there right now, but there's not too many people that want to be in law enforcement because of the things that are in the media, and unfortunately, I mean, I sound like I have a hatred for media, but I just think they have to own up. They have a lot of responsibility in what's going on out there because they have such a large platform that they can reach out to massive thousands of people and kind of and place that idea in someone's head, whether a certain group of people is bad or good.
Yeah, I'm a constitutional carry dude. I think if a hell of a lot more people were armed, yeah, you'd have a lot more people shot. But I think eventually you'd kind of help clean things up. Could you imagine if every single person in Portland was armed?
Yeah, I mean it's yeah. I mean
Well,
I think
I know the gangs are already armed, but what if there was more good people carrying in Portland?
exactly good, responsible, law-abiding citizens that are armed. Yeah, I mean I think that would most definitely reduce the amount of crime because I mean if I was a gangster, I would not want to go up to somebody that I know that was armed, like to
Right.
try and rob them. If I was someone that's a bad dude, it's like, hey, I'm going to commit some crime. I would probably target those who are not armed, not the ones who are armed. So,
Oh yeah,
this is my thoughts on that.
yeah. I'm like a 240 for everybody kind of dude. We'll just figure it out.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Tommy, man, we appreciate you. And guys, make sure you go. There's a link in the description. Go check it out, man. It's a really good book. And yeah. Any last
Thanks,
words,
Randall.
man?
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. Like I said, I love the law enforcement profession, but it's definitely something I would not want to go back to unless there's some major changes. So I'm gonna keep doing what I'm doing here.